Why is it that 85% of ambitious, intelligent young people find themselves completely paralyzed, staring at a blank screen or a ceiling for hours, unable to start the exact project that could change their lives? You tell yourself you are just lazy. You tell yourself that if you only had more discipline, if you only woke up at 5 in the morning, if you only bought another planner, you would finally get your life together. But here is the brutal truth that almost nobody talks about. You're not lazy, and your chronic lack of action has nothing to do with a weak mindset. In fact, the harder you try to force yourself to work, the deeper you sink into this invisible trap. Right now, your body is trapped in an ancient biological response known as functional freeze. In just a few minutes, I am going to reveal something about your nervous system that might completely change how you view your entire life, your career, and every single failure you have ever blamed yourself for. Think about the last time this happened to you. You sat down with full intention to finish an important assignment. You opened your laptop. You looked at the screen. And then, out of nowhere, an overwhelming wave of mental exhaustion settled over your mind. Your thoughts scattered. Your energy vanished in seconds, as if someone violently pulled the power cord on your life force. You picked up your phone, not because you were having fun, but because your brain desperately needed an escape from the unbearable tension building inside your chest. I spent years beating myself up over this exact pattern, watching the clock tick past midnight, while my unfinished task piled up like an avalanche. My heart would be racing with pure panic, yet my limbs felt heavy, completely frozen, scrolling mindlessly through feeds. It was not relaxation. It felt like being held hostage inside my own body, screaming at myself to stand up and do something, while my nervous system flatly refused to move. If you have ever felt that sickening mixture of extreme inner panic combined with complete physical immobility, you know this is not a character flaw. It is a biological shutdown. In this video, we are going to dissect the hidden neurological mechanism behind this chronic paralysis. You will discover the exact circuit breaker inside your brain that deliberately shuts off your ability to take action whenever pressure crosses a critical threshold. You will understand why traditional productivity hacks and aggressive self-punishment actually make this condition significantly worse, driving you deeper into survival mode. Most importantly, you will receive a proven, science-backed protocol to safely disarm this internal alarm, release the invisible emergency brake, and regain effortless momentum without ever having to fight yourself again. What you're experiencing right now is an internal war between your conscious ambitions and an involuntary survival reflex. Before we fix it, we must first understand why your brain treats your to-do list as a life-or-death predator. Let us look beneath the surface and uncover what is really happening inside your mind. To understand why your body shuts down when you need it most, we have to tear down the single most destructive myth in modern society. That myth is the idea that procrastination is caused by laziness. When we look at someone who cannot get off the sofa, we assume they simply do not care enough. We assume they lack ambition, lack discipline, and lack the mental toughness required to succeed. Even worse, we apply this exact toxic judgment to ourselves. You tell yourself that if you were stronger, if you were more focused, you would not be wasting hours scrolling through random videos while your deadlines approach. This brings us to the first group of people caught in this trap, what psychologists call the self-blamer. If you belong to this category, your entire life is an exhausting cycle of temporary motivation followed by crushing collapse. You buy a brand new leather notebook, download 3 different time management applications, set alarms for 5 in the morning, and swear that this Monday will be different. For 48 hours, you force yourself forward through sheer white-knuckle willpower. But by Wednesday evening, an invisible wall appears out of nowhere. Suddenly, reading a single email feels like trying to lift a 2-ton boulder. Your mind goes completely blank. Your eyes glaze over and you find yourself lying in bed, paralyzed by an unbearable sense of guilt. You look at your unused planner and think that you are fundamentally broken. But here's what is actually happening beneath your skin. What you're experiencing is not a failure of character, and it is certainly not laziness. Laziness is a conscious, pleasurable choice to do nothing. When you're truly being lazy, you are relaxing. You're enjoying a movie, eating good food, and feeling peaceful. Functional freeze is the exact opposite. During a freeze state, your mind is racing at 100 miles an hour with catastrophic scenarios. Your muscles are clenched tight, your stomach is knotted with dread, and your entire body is burning massive amounts of biological energy just trying to keep your panic contained. You are not resting. You are drowning in silent stress. To truly understand this, we need to look at what happens inside your brain when pressure starts to build. But what happens next is where the real neuroscience comes into play, and it will completely change how you view your daily struggles. Deep inside your skull sits an ancient almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. The amygdala does not care about your career goals, your grades, your income, or your personal dreams. Its only evolutionary purpose is to keep you alive. For millions of years, the threats to human survival were physical and immediate, like predators hiding in the dark, rival tribes attacking, or venomous snakes in the grass. Whenever your ancient ancestors encountered these threats, the autonomic nervous system activated one of two survival strategies: fight or flight. Your heart pumped blood to your limbs, adrenaline flooded your veins, and your breathing accelerated so you could either battle the predator or run away as fast as possible. In modern society, you don't face saber-toothed tigers. Instead, your threats come in the form of a dissertation you have not started, a high-stakes presentation for your boss, unpaid bills on your kitchen counter, or the terrifying fear of putting your work out there and being judged by others. To your modern prefrontal cortex, which is the rational, logical part of your brain, an unpaid bill is just a piece of paper. But to your ancient amygdala, that unpaid bill is a predator threatening your survival. When you sit at your desk to tackle that terrifying project, your brain interprets the emotional threat of potential failure, rejection, or inadequacy as a physical danger. Your sympathetic nervous system fires instantly, flooding your bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate climbs, your chest tightens, and your body prepares to run for its life. But here's the problem. You cannot run away from an assignment. You cannot physically punch your computer screen. You are forced to sit completely still in a chair while your internal chemistry is screaming that you are in mortal peril. This is where the second branch of your nervous system takes over, and it leads us directly into the heart of the freeze response. According to polyvagal theory, developed by neuroscientist Dr. Stephen Porges, our nervous system does not just have fight or flight. We have an even older, deeper survival mechanism governed by the dorsal vagal complex. When your nervous system determines that you cannot fight the danger and you cannot run away from it, it makes a lightning-fast subconscious calculation. It decides that fighting will kill you, running will fail, and the only way to survive the overwhelming stress is to play dead. This is the dorsal vagal shutdown. In nature, when an antelope is cornered by a lion with zero chance of escape, it suddenly collapses into a limp, comatose state. Its heart rate drops, its pain receptors are numbed by natural endorphins, and its body becomes completely motionless. The animal is not being lazy. Its nervous system has triggered an involuntary biological emergency brake to minimize tissue damage and conserve vital resources until the threat passes. When you sit at your computer, overwhelmed by life, your brain hits this exact same emergency switch. Your nervous system triggers a functional freeze. This creates a terrifying physiological paradox that I like to call the floored gas pedal, with the emergency brake locked. Imagine driving a powerful car. You step on the gas pedal with all your strength, the engine screams, the pistons fire at maximum capacity, fuel burns rapidly, and smoke pours from the hood. But at the same exact time, the emergency handbrake is yanked all the way up. The wheels are locked in iron clamps. The car does not move forward a single millimeter, even though the engine is on the verge of exploding from the sheer strain. That is your mind and body during a functional freeze. The gas pedal is your conscious ambition, your perfectionism, your desire to succeed, and the constant voice in your head screaming that you must get to work right now. That is sympathetic arousal. The handbrake is your dorsal vagal shutdown, your nervous system desperately trying to protect you from the terrifying stress of potential failure, judgment, or exhaustion. Your engine is redlining, your heart is pounding with silent dread, your brain is burning vast reserves of glucose, yet your hands and legs cannot move. You sit frozen on your chair, feeling like you are trapped behind a wall of thick glass. Now you might be asking yourself why this happens to you more than other people. Why do some individuals seem to take action effortlessly while you get trapped in this agonizing limbo? This brings us to the second type of person in our funnel, the high-functioning perfectionist. This is the person who appeared to have everything together for years, the star student, the reliable worker, the person who always said yes to every responsibility. But beneath that polished exterior, their nervous system was running on borrowed time. If you're a high-functioning perfectionist, you likely developed a subconscious belief early in life that your worth as a human being is entirely tied to your productivity and your achievements. For you, making a mistake or producing mediocre work is not just a minor setback. It feels like an existential threat to your identity. When every single task carries the immense emotional weight of proving your personal worth, every task becomes a life or death battle. You might be able to maintain this high-pressure state for months or even years by running purely on anxiety and adrenaline. You tell yourself that stress is just the price of success. But your nervous system was never designed to live in a continuous state of emergency. Chronic stress floods your brain with toxic levels of cortisol. Over time, this constant chemical bath degrades your prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for executive function, decision-making, and initiating action. Eventually, the pressure becomes too high. Your brain realizes that if it allows you to keep pushing at this terrifying pace, you will suffer catastrophic physical or psychological collapse. So, without consulting your conscious mind, your dorsal vagal system steps in and trips the main circuit breaker. Think of a modern house filled with expensive electronics. If a massive lightning bolt strikes the power lines outside, sending thousands of volts of dangerous electricity surging toward your home, the main circuit breaker instantly snaps shut. The lights go out, the television turns off, and the house plunges into total darkness. In that moment, a child might cry and think the house is broken, but an electrician knows the truth. The circuit breaker did not fail. The circuit breaker worked perfectly to save the house from burning to the ground. Your functional freeze is that exact circuit breaker. When the emotional electricity of your self-criticism, your impossible standards, and your mountain of responsibilities reaches lethal levels, your brain deliberately trips the switch. It cuts the power to your motivation. It clouds your thoughts with brain fog. It makes your limbs feel as heavy as lead. It does this not to ruin your career, but to prevent your entire system from suffering complete biological destruction. The tragic mistake that 85% of people make at this moment is trying to fix the problem with aggression. When you notice that the power is out, when you realize you're frozen, what do you usually do? You scream at yourself. You tell yourself how pathetic you are. You watch harsh motivational speeches telling you to grind harder, wake up earlier, and stop making excuses. You're essentially walking up to a tripped circuit breaker, ignoring the dangerous electrical fire, and trying to force the switch back on with a heavy metal hammer. Every time you insult yourself, every time you try to use fear and shame to force your body to work, you send another massive surge of panic through your nervous system. Your amygdala sees that the danger has increased, so it clamps down on the dorsal vagal emergency brake even harder. You become more exhausted, more paralyzed, and more convinced that you are fundamentally broken. I remember a period in my life where I spent nearly 3 entire months in this silent nightmare. Every single morning, I would wake up with a burning desire to change my life. I had a clear outline of everything I needed to write, every phone call I needed to make, and every habit I wanted to build. But the moment I sat down at my desk, an invisible weight would crush my chest. My vision would blur slightly, my brain felt like it was stuffed with wet cotton, and a quiet voice of despair would whisper that it was completely pointless to try. I tried every productivity technique on the internet. I bought noise-canceling headphones, I used website blockers, I drank 3 cups of black coffee, and I tried counting down from 5 to force myself into action. None of it worked. In fact, the more techniques I tried and failed, the more hopeless I felt. I thought my willpower was completely decayed. I did not understand that I was trying to solve a biological nervous system shutdown using cognitive willpower tools. You cannot think your way out of a survival reflex that originated deep in your reptilian brainstem. To break free from this state, you have to stop treating yourself like a disobedient worker who needs to be punished, and start treating your nervous system like an overwhelmed animal that needs to be convinced of its physical safety. You cannot force a frightened animal to perform tricks by screaming at it, and you cannot force a frozen nervous system to be productive by shaming it. You must learn how to send direct physiological signals of safety down the vagus nerve, turning off the alarm in your amygdala, gently resetting the biological circuit breaker, and allowing the prefrontal cortex to naturally come back online. When you understand how to navigate the polyvagal ladder, moving smoothly from the darkness of dorsal vagal freeze through the active energy of sympathetic activation and finally settling into the calm, focused state of ventral vagal safety, taking action ceases to be a brutal war. It becomes as effortless and natural as breathing. Now let us step back and look at this entire experience through a completely new lens, which reveals the third type of person in our journey, the liberated survivor. When you look back at all the hours, days, and months you lost to functional freeze, it is easy to feel a deep wave of regret and bitterness. You think about all the opportunities missed, the deadlines delayed, and the dreams that were put on hold. You look at your frozen state as a tragic flaw, an ugly personal weakness that robbed you of your true potential. But I want to offer you a radical reframe that will alter your relationship with yourself forever. Your freeze response was never your enemy. It was never proof that you are lazy, unmotivated, or broken. The freeze response is your body's most ancient, brilliant, and devoted protector. Think about what was actually happening when your system shut down. You were demanding impossible perfection from yourself. You were carrying mountains of unseen pressure, unresolved emotional tension, chronic sleep deprivation, and relentless self-judgment. You were driving your mental and biological vehicle at maximum speed directly toward a brick wall of catastrophic burnout, nervous breakdown, or severe cardiovascular distress. Your conscious mind was too stubborn, too driven, and too addicted to productivity to stop. So your biology intervened on your behalf. Your dorsal vagal system stepped in and pulled the emergency brake. It tripped the circuit breaker to save your life from catching fire. The paralysis you hated so much was actually your nervous system throwing its arms around you, forcing you to lie down and saying, "I will not let you destroy yourself any longer." When you understand this, your entire approach shifts from war to cooperation. You stop trying to violently force yourself into action. Instead, you begin to practice somatic realignment. You start by acknowledging the freeze without shame. You look around your physical room and name 5 objects to bring your sensory brain back into the present moment. You take long, slow exhalations that physiologically force your vagus nerve to slow down your heart rate. You break tasks down into micro steps so small that your amygdala does not even register them as a threat. You gently prove to your nervous system that taking action is physically safe. Ask yourself this critical question: what would your life look like if you stopped treating your body like an unfeeling machine that must be beaten into submission, and started treating it like a sacred home that requires safety and understanding? How much effortless energy, creativity, and joy would return to your daily life if you finally laid down the weapons of self-contempt? If you resonate with this truth, do not let this awareness slip away into old habits. In our next deep dive investigation, I am going to reveal the exact 3-minute somatic reset technique that permanently recalibrates your vagus nerve, allowing you to instantly discharge fight or flight energy and escape chronic freeze in real time. 99% of high achievers have never heard of this protocol, and it is the single most powerful biological tool for reclaiming your focus and drive. Make sure you subscribe and click the bell notification right now, because missing that breakdown could cost you months of unnecessary struggling inside an overwhelmed body.